happened since the Spurrier era. This is it's very interesting, Tyler, and you see a lot of the quote unquote experts, a lot of preseason prognostications. South Carolina is a top 15 team in the country. Will be competing for a college football playoff spot. That's all the good stuff. The good stuff is you have got a quarterback who, if everything works out well, will be sitting in New York, seeing if his name is called or not for the Heisman Trophy. You have an edge pass rusher that, if things go the way we think, will be a wrecking machine, or will be occupying so many blockers, everybody else will be a wrecking machine in Dylan Stewart. We have a guy in Jalen Kilgore playing on the back end of the defense in the secondary who has the potential to possibly be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, if not a premium round pick in the NFL draft. All that's wonderful.
Yes.
But, you ready for the but?
Sure.
It's not the 2 T's, it's the 1 T. Let's hope it doesn't get to the 2 T's on the but.
I hope not.
The but. You're replacing your center and 2 guards. You're replacing your starting running back. You're replacing your starting tight end / security blanket for Lenore Sellers. You're replacing, besides Dylan Stewart, the entire defensive front line. You're replacing the entire linebacking core. And you're replacing a starting corner and a starting safety that was a second-round pick in the NFL draft. And, you ready for another one?
Sure.
You're replacing the entire special teams.
Is that it? You done?
Have I missed anything, sir?
I don't think so. Look, it's been a fun offseason. It's nice to be a team that's considered in rankings and this and that. And again, Lenore Sellers being looked at as a Heisman favorite, first-round pick, all these kind of things. It's been a lot of fun to get to talk about this stuff leading up, but today's where you got to go out there and prove it. And, you do have those individual guys peppered throughout this team on both sides of the football that give you reason for confidence, but it's those gaps around them that you kind of worry about, okay, are these other guys going to be able to fill those spots left behind by the guys that were on the team a year ago? But we did have questions going into last season. Nobody thought Demetrius Knight was going to go out there and become, a high round pick in the NFL draft, playing as, like his hair was on fire the entire season. That ended up happening. So you hope that there's a couple guys in the mix that we just don't know enough about on either side of the football here that go out there and really wow us. And by the end of the season, we're saying, man, I didn't think that guy was going to be that good when he got here.
Yeah. Who said, well, besides you and I, that Kyle Kennard would win the Nagurski Award?
Nobody.
Let me tell you, when Kyle Kennard came in last year, I was like, wow, a guy with a history of rushing the passer who has, some stats of actually sacking quarterbacks. You really need that. Now, again, what was it? 3 of the sacks were against Wake in one game, if I remember correctly.
4 of his
that's right.
8 at Tech were in one game against Wake.
Yeah. But we said this. Here's an experienced player who we know has actually sacked quarterbacks.
Yes.
That made us feel good.
At a Power 4 level. And again, we expected him to be good. We didn't expect him to be that good.
We didn't expect that.
We also didn't expect the genetic freak on the other side of the defensive line that was going to occupy a lot of attention that obviously helped out Kyle Kennard a lot as well.
Well, that's the thing. And really, Kyle Kennard should have split the Nagurski Award with Dylan Stewart.
It's just sawed it in half.
Because, look, we think we know what we don't know. You don't know what a freshman's going to do.
Sure.
Some freshmen come in, and as the season goes along, they become more productive. Some freshmen come in, they need to be redshirted, or some freshmen come in, and they need that year of getting smacked around so they can be better in their sophomore season. And then occasionally, every now and then, you get a mutant who comes in with the combination of physical ability beyond his age and some technical skill beyond his age, and he becomes a game wrecker, and that's what Dylan Stewart was.
Well, and it reignited an area of this team that has struggled the past couple of years, which was pass rush and getting after the quarterback, that they really needed to take a step forward, and they did that right out the gate last year. What was the second play of the game when you had the fumble recovery there and within the 5-yard line that set South Carolina up for the touchdown against Old Dominion. So it really kind of started what was a great season for both those guys, and obviously the entire edge room benefited. Brian Thomas Jr. had a couple sacks last year and kind of spelling those two guys when they needed a breather and all that kind of stuff. But it kind of reignited Carolina's pass rush, which we hope can continue on through this season, starting today against Virginia Tech.
And look, could it be Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy who pops? Could be Monkel Goodwine in his second year pop. Could Nick Barrett, who they purposely said, hey, Nick, sit down and watch the season. We're going to need you next year. Could Nick Barrett be a guy who might not bring pass rush, but is an anchor in the middle of that defense, especially in the run game? And you have linebackers with a ton of athleticism in J.O. and Murphy and Johnson and all 4-star guys. Can these guys take that next step? You know, you bring in Brandon Cisse, who everyone thinks is going to be phenomenal at one corner across from Judge Collier. Peyton Williams, who when he did spell guys in the secondary at safety, did show that he could handle himself in short doses, but can he now handle himself as a starter if he is going to be, because we didn't get a depth chart.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here, Tyler, and I think this is what it carries to. Look, last year was great. Surprised everybody. Win 6 in a row to end the season. Just missed the college football playoff. But then you have all this change. And, of course, everybody's got change. 7 of the top 10 teams in college football in the preseason rankings are starting new quarterbacks, for the love of God. But you want to – the next level of this for Shane Beamer and this program is to become – consistent now. You got to take that next level where now you consistently are a good program, not have a really good season, fall back, but you want to now get to that next level where you are one of the good programs consistently in the conference.
And I think that's where this season goes a long way, because obviously in every year, but 2023, Coach Beamer's teams have exceeded expectations. And again, rightfully so, there's a lot of questions going into this year, but if you can back up what you did a year ago by winning 9 games or maybe even more this upcoming season, with everything that you did lose to the NFL, namely on defense, then I think people start to say, okay, we're just going to expect Beamer teams to be around that 8, 9, 10 win mark, because that's just what they do. It doesn't matter who they lose, doesn't matter who they have to bring in. There's always going to be that kind of level of team, which again, we talk about that middle tier of the SEC, that like 5 to 12 that's so wide open. And some years you're 5, some years you're 11, some years you're 12, some years you're 7, where you're trying to break through and get to that next level. I'm not saying having another 9-win season gets you to that level. The Alabamas, and maybe not Alabama right now, but Georgia's, Texas's, and teams like that. For example, right now, but you know what I mean.
Right.
But it continues you on the path of maybe getting there soon.
Right. And that you want to get to the point where you're reloading, not rebuilding.
Yes.
And that's what we hope this year will be, more of a reloading season where guys step up, not just the transfer portal guys, but guys who have been in the program for a couple of years, and it's now your turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's now your turn, Peyton Williams. It's now, your turn, Johnson, or our boy Fred at linebacker.
I will say, with the exception, though, of Dow Loggins, obviously, when took the App State job as head coach, everything else is the same coaching-wise. I mean, Mike Shula moved from being your quarterback coach to your offensive coordinator, but he was at least here a year ago. So you do have the continuity from the standpoint of your mainly coordinators as well as all your position coaches being the exact same as last year.
All right, and the flip side of continuity is Virginia Tech.
Yes.
Make no mistake, Brent Pry is on the hot seat.
Very hot.
And we're going to talk more about this when we focus on them. An underwhelming season last year, 6-7, stumbled and bumbled your way to a bowl game. 1-12 in one-score games is Brent Pry. We'll talk about that more later. 2 new coordinators, 24 transfer portal guys come in. A lot of upheaval, if you want to say the word correctly. You've got coaching staff turnover, roster turnover. Coordinators, Philip Montgomery has a track record, but you bring in a guy who has been a defensive coordinator at Wofford years ago. Mm-hmm. So this thing is totally the opposite of what we hope South Carolina is with Virginia Tech. And we will talk more about them in the third segment of the show, but let's face it, our boy Coach Pry has got to get it done this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of see that in the desperation of going out there and acquiring so much transfer portal talent that they did. And the number to look at is 50 of their 105 players are brand new to this team, either as true freshmen or guys out of the transfer portal. And, Beamer talked about it earlier on this week. They're watching Bowling Green and Central Missouri State and all these schools around the country trying to focus in and lock in for these guys at Virginia Tech, because you just don't know, because they have so many new faces and so many new places. And some of those guys are going to be factors today. Some of those guys aren't going to be, but you have to prepare for everything, which that's kind of Virginia Tech's kind of a microcosm of what college football is now, where you can completely flip your roster from one year to the next. Sometimes you do that because you want to. Sometimes you do that because you have to. Virginia Tech's in the situation where they have to.
And there's such a wild card today because, again, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know anything. You don't know. Philip Montgomery had really good offenses his first years at Tulsa. Then it kind of went. Remember, he was the scapegoat at Auburn. He was the offensive coordinator for a year.
Yep.
He was the offensive coordinator at Baylor, but Art Briles was the offensive coordinator at Baylor. Let's just be honest.
He held the place sheet for him.
Yeah. See, he went and he got Art coffee and rubbed his feet. So we really don't know what Philip Montgomery's bringing to the table. We don't know anything about this defense, but we know one thing. Brent Pry is really the defensive coordinator, the head coach.
Yes.
He's the guy that sets the defensive tone. Special teams are really good. We'll get into that later. They have a kicker who's phenomenal. But you don't know anything what they're going to do on either side of the ball because of all of this stuff. And that's the wild card here. Look, Florida State's a great example of this.
Mm-hmm.
in the portal a few years ago, back-to-back double-digit win seasons in the portal last year. They were god-awful. The coach gave money back this year. Yesterday, they go out there and punch Alabama in the scrotum. So you just don't know. And that's the one thing about Virginia Tech, that if you want to be concerned on the unknown that is this world you bring up of college football.
Yeah, and then that's the scary part of today is we think that Carolina overall has the better roster. We think they have the better skill position players, but you just don't really know because, again, there are guys that can come into the transfer portal from FCS or Group of Five that completely explode onto the scene that you just don't see coming. So, again, Beamer and company have their work cut out for them preparing for this game, and we'll find out here in about 5 hours.
And we'll get more into this. A fast start will be wonderful. Let's just say that. And we'll get into that later on. All right, it's Gamecocks game day. We are hanging here live at O'Hara's. Main Street, downtown Lexington. I believe they open at 11. That's what my phone told me.
Yes.
They open at 11. So we'll be hanging out here till noon with Gamecocks game day. 3 o'clock, our viewing party. Come in, watch the game, have something to eat, something to drink, register for tickets for South Carolina Clemson. We'll be making that drawing the week of the game, but you got to get in, you got to register. And many times you register, the better your chances are. Well, that's what I've heard. All right, we'll get back in here. We will take a quick look back at the last game that South Carolina played, Citrus Bowl against Illinois. And also we're going to hear from our buddy Ryan Brewer, get a little bit of brew on an early Sunday morning as we get you ready for kickoff. 3 o'clock from Atlanta, Gamecocks game day, Gamecocks and Virginia Tech. We will rewind quickly and then talk to Brewer next here on 107.5 The Game. Cox Game Day live. We're hanging here at O'Hara's, Main Street in Lexington, getting you ready for a 3 o'clock kick in Atlanta, South Carolina, and Virginia Tech. We have to rewind because it's part of the show.
Yes.
Very rare. I have no desire to rewind this mess. I won't lie to you. I look over at you right now, and God love you, you have the box score of the Citrus Bowl up between Illinois and South Carolina. I don't.
Yeah.
I refuse. That thing was I said this going into that game. I understand, the motivation. We want to get 10 wins. I understand that you've got to motivate your guys because you're playing a game.
Sure.
Bowl games are so today, unless it's a college football playoff game. I mean, so many guys will opt out for the NFL draft, which I totally understand, by the way, and I support.
Yeah, totally.
So many guys are like, oh, I'm piecing out of here to get early start, to get ready for the portal, whatever the case. Your team, and this is for Illinois and South Carolina, you lose players. You're not the team you were to accumulate this record. And for South Carolina, that's who we care about, obviously. I mean, you didn't have your starting running back. You didn't have your Nagurski award-winning edge pass rusher. You had your starting safety for a half that nobody didn't know about or wasn't communicated correctly. So it wasn't the team that you won 6 in a row with. And so I just think that, and Illinois didn't have, I believe, their leading receiver.
Yep,
I mean,
he opted out.
It's just the idea that you're not whole.
Sure.
So if you win the game, great, right? Then you can pump your chest. But I look at these games, even if South Carolina would have won this game, I'd have been, hey, 10th win is phenomenal, but it's not really the team that you won with all season.
And that was the significant thing about this game, is because both programs hadn't had a 10-win season in a while, and both were going in with the exact same 9-3 record. So there was a little bit of meaning behind it. But you're right. You're working with, less than what you had, for most of the season last year. And it was a competitive game back and forth. Carolina doesn't cash in there at the very end on that 4th down, in the end zone to Josh Simon. And again, this game's going to be remembered more for the beef between Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema more than anything else.
Yeah,
exactly. By the way, we saw the T-bar thing. I think it was in the Texas game yesterday where the guy returned it, but his teammate did the T-bar, and they called it for a touchback there.
Hey, Tyler, that's going to be what we remember this game for. It changed the rule.
Exactly. It changed the rule.
That's it.
So yeah, that's where it's going to, have its legacy going forward, not necessarily what exactly happened. But I mean, again, it was a fun game between two teams that I think the teams cared about the game. And again, you just had key players sitting out of it, but it didn't doom the season or anything like that.
To me, again, you had a great end of the year. You win 6 in a row. Okay, you lose a 1-score game in the Citrus Bowl. Okay, I mean, it would have been great to win 10, right? And
Sure.
You could have been like, man, that's phenomenal. Hadn't done that since the Spurrier era. And I'm with you. Both teams, I mean, that was an intense football game. Everybody played hard. There was a chippiness to it with the coaches and the players. It just, again, you were missing your leading rusher, who was quite important, also the number 2 receiver as the year went on. And you're missing a guy coming off the edge who was very important and vital to what you did. And look, I know the other thing that comes out of it is just the idea. A lot of people are like, oh, surely, you see, I called that game. He's gonna make Sellers a pocket passer. Oh my God, what are we doing here? I think a lot of that in that game was Illinois put 1, sometimes 2 spies on Sellers, because basically Illinois said this: drop in the pocket and beat us, dude.
Yeah, beat us with your arm.
And to be fair, I mean, it's a combination of, obviously South Carolina didn't get that done. The passing game couldn't do that, but that's a combination. It's not just, okay, Lenoir's couldn't get it done. No, the receivers, they weren't winning one-on-one. They weren't getting open. They weren't finding space in zone defenses. It was a combination of a lot of things, but basically Illinois said, we want you to pass and beat us. You're not going to run around with your legs and affect the game. And that worked. So, coming into this year, teams are going to take that playbook and that idea, and they're going to throw it at South Carolina.
Yeah, and the question becomes okay, how much further along has Sellers gotten this offseason, working with Shula now as his offensive coordinator, which, again, we'll learn a little bit more about that, later on today. But again, disappointing not to get 10 wins at the end of last year, but still a good season nonetheless, and, was a part of carrying that momentum into the offseason. If anything, created a new rival for South Carolina, because now people here hate Illinois, and we never saw that coming.
I know. Who would have known that there would be Brett Bielema would be more hated than Mark Stoops, or he's second behind Dabo all of a sudden. Are we done with this now? Can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
All right, we're done with that. All right, now, David Dare, who's doing a fine job producing back at Mission Control. Let's get to a little bit of brew with our buddy Ryan Brewer. Gamecocks game day live from O'Hara's Main Street downtown Lexington. Viewing party 3 o'clock today. Come in, grab something to eat, grab something to drink, and register for Carolina Clemson tickets that we'll be giving away the week of the game rivalry week. So pop in here at O'Hara's Main Street in Lexington to watch the game later. Virginia Tech, South Carolina. We're getting you ready for that on Gamecocks game day. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, Rachel's here. She broke into the place. She's got skills. Also, David Ayer back in mission control, punching the buttons. And the behind the scenes today, Dave's drinking heavily already.
You might have to give Dave an extra day off this week.
All right. The Brent Pry cut. That was head coach Brent Pry of Virginia Tech. Talk about Terry and Stewart, who is looked at as healthy would be the starting running back for this team. That's when Terry and Stewart came in from Bowling Green in the portal, was to be the starting running back of Virginia Tech. Stewart's been hurt. He's been in a walking boot. We don't know what his availability will be today at all. If he's going to start, he'll be fine. If he gets limited reps, if he doesn't play at all, we don't know. The depth chart has him, I believe, as the starter with an or.
Yeah, so he and Marcellus Hawkins are listed as the or for 1-2. And I even looked as late as last night. I didn't see any new update on him since the last time Brent Pry spoke. So maybe kind of a game time decision type thing. But when you heard what Pry said, it doesn't give you a lot of optimism if you're a Virginia Tech fan.
Well, now look, and Pry could be, because, no one's saying you got to get up and tell the truth. No one's hooked you to a Falker lie detector, right?
Sure.
But here's my thing. He might be playing, the wink-wink game with you.
He could be.
But let's say he's telling the truth. Why would you get up in front of microphones and say your guys had an average so-so camp?
Yeah, well, and typically coaches don't tell us those things. They say everything's bright, sunshine, rainbows, and all that kind of stuff. And we find out in game number 1 of, that guy maybe isn't that good. So the fact that he felt the need to say Terry and Stewart's not had a good camp in addition to being hurt, then if I'm a VT fan, I'm like, well, why am I going to hope this guy's going to be good?
Oh, if you're Hokie Media, you're going, thank you, Brent. You gave us something to talk about and write about and blab about. Thank you so much. And again, he could be playing possum. Who knows? But point is, why would you say that out loud if that is truly the case? It was kind of a head scratcher for me. All right, this team, again, we hit it a bit in the open. Last year, they were a dark horse to win the ACC. They went to Nashville, lost in overtime to Vanderbilt, got behind big early, caught back up. And this is the thing about this team. 1-12 in one-score games in the Brent Pry era. They beat one team in a one-score game, Hugh Freeze's Liberty Squad.
Yep.
That was Pry's first year, late season. They have not beat a Power 4 team in a one-score game.
Yeah.
And when I look back at last year, I was like, okay, let's just kind of look at this. There's no rhyme or reason. In some of these games, they started slow, got down big. To their credit, came fighting back to tie the game or get close. But then in the fourth quarter, when big plays had to be made, sometimes the offense couldn't make a big play. Sometimes the defense couldn't get a big stop. And some games they got up big and then went in the second and third quarters and then had to scuffle around the fourth quarter. But the one thing I've noticed, Tyler, it's not just offense or defense, it's both. They've been in games where the offense scores, right, to either tie or put them ahead, and the defense can't stop the other team's offense. Or the defense will get a stop, and the offense in a big moment, they can't get it done. It was both sides of the ball. So you just couldn't point at one thing and says that's got to get better if they should win these close games.
Yeah, it's a team that just can't figure out how to close things out. They play 3.5 quarters, can't figure out that last half of the fourth quarter there. And again, so much has changed in the offseason. We'll bring in the new personnel, change that. We don't know. But again, we talked about a Brent Pry, somebody that's feeling the heat and losing all those one-score games. Certainly, certainly has a lot to do with that. So we'll see. I think the key today is making sure it's not a tight one-score game in the end, so they can eventually, figure it out. Make sure you put them away to where they're not in a position to make something happen late.
Colby Coleman talked to us this week from Virginia Tech. We're going to get a cut from him in a second. He said two things that were very interesting to Jay and I. One thing he said was the conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the conditioning staff because they thought they weren't in great condition in the fourth quarter of these games, and maybe that's one reason why they lost. Head scratcher. Two, though, a lot of changes were made because, according to Colby, that there was a lack of buy-in from the players last year. So that goes to culture. So Pry changes coordinators. Again, 24 new dudes through the portal, like you said, over 50 new players in general on this team. So when you have look, in this day and age of transfer portal and you got so many guys coming in and out, you can say sometimes you don't mix, but that team had 19 returning starters last year. What the bleep happened that they did not buy in? If that is true, what went on off the field for Virginia Tech last year?
Yeah, it's the question that we don't really know the answer to. Something that happens in the locker room, whether that's a lack of belief in Brent Pry, a lack of belief in who their coordinators were a season ago. Well, we don't really know. But again, you've kind of cleaned the slate, brought in a whole bunch of new guys, and we'll see if that changes. And it's interesting you bring up the thing about the conditioning, because we kind of had a similar situation here at Carolina. They didn't necessarily change the staff, but going into last season, they said, hey, we're going to change the way we go about doing things, the way we condition, train ourselves to make us better compared to that 2023 season. And lo and behold, it worked for South Carolina. So Virginia Tech's looking at that kind of blueprint, saying we hope the same thing happens for us.
Yeah, and with Pry, there was Colby Coleman also kind of insinuated that Pry, one of the reasons that this team struggles in the fourth quarter of games goes back to maybe some coaching decisions. And look, but I always think this too, because one-score games are so weird. If you talk to all the analytics freaks, they'll tell you typically this thing evens itself out over time, because in some instances you're just winning games because the football gods are smiling on you.
Yeah, the ball eventually bounces your way more often, about half the time.
It usually somehow evens up, sort of. But when you're 1-12, what is that about you? Because you're the leader.
Right.
What is it about you in these late game situations? Do you tighten up? Are you flipping out? Are you freaking out? Are you not being calm, cool, and collected? Is there something in the culture you set that is having your guys come up short from a confidence level, from whatever is going on here? 1-12 and one-score games in 3 years is weird, dude.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And again, we'll see if they're in that kind of situation today, and if South Carolina, can hold them at bay to where they're not there, because eventually you would think that, again, those things kind of start to even out, but for whatever reason they have not up to this point. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Colby Coleman talking about, let's get this offensive line cut in, Dave. Kyron Drones is back, the quarterback. We'll talk about him in a minute. We talked about Terry and Stewart, but a lot of things are new at wide receiver. They do have a tight end coming back who's solid. Offensive line's got a lot of upheaval. Let's hear what Colby Coleman said about the Virginia Tech O-line. Hit it, Dave.
Yeah, definitely some concern, and rightfully so. We're talking to the offensive line coach, Matt Moore, here later today for hopefully, but probably not, a little bit of clarity along that offensive line. So initially throughout spring and into fall camp, we were seeing a different rotation, and then what was released on the depth chart last night with West Virginia, or yesterday, depth chart with West Virginia transfer Tomas Remek shifting over there to left guard when he'd been working at right tackle. Is that gamesmanship or wanting to give some help on that left side and presumptive, or I guess assumed matchup of Dylan Stewart over on that side? Maybe. Tomas Remek obviously played pretty much exclusively guard at West Virginia. Are they just trying to shuffle and see if that's the strength and move him there? But they feel pretty certain about that starting five. I'm not exactly sure in what order and how that shuffles before Sunday. It will be that five rolling out there, but it's just not exactly sure of that order. Now behind them, like you said, there definitely is concern along the depth in the offensive line. I'm not so certain about Sunday if someone goes down, but throughout the season, like there's just not a lot of depth built up in that room. So it's going to be interesting to see. They have a couple swing guys they feel all right about, and then behind them, it's pretty much true freshmen and one redshirt freshman guy. So if anything does happen, you could see some really, really young, experienced green players having to take live bullets against a top 15 ranked team on national TV. So that offensive line, I think, like I said, I've touched on it, that top five they feel really comfortable about, and really any order, they're just trying to find exactly what spot. But behind them, it's a massive, massive question mark.
All right, real quick, maybe they're moving Tomas Remek, who's their best offensive lineman, out to tackle, because the guy that would have been facing Dylan Stewart is Johnny Garrett. Now, obviously, Garrett would have got love, from the guards, the tight ends, the backs, everyone. He wasn't going to be blocking Dylan Stewart one-on-one. But maybe Garrett last year was he was nothing special at tackle. So maybe you move Remek out because he's your best offensive lineman. Maybe, again, you're playing possum. Who knows? The offensive line's an issue at Virginia Tech. Also, Tyler, the flip side, Drones is a guy, he's not a good deep ball thrower. He's been good throwing intermediate, but he's also scuffled. He's a guy that struggles against pressure. If South Carolina can get pressure on Drones, he's not a big scrambler.
Yeah.
If you can get pressure on Drones, that's the key to shutting down the Virginia Tech passing game.
He does have athleticism to be able to use his legs when he needed it. It's not as much of the offensive identity as Sellers is here at South Carolina. And that offensive line last year did a really poor job of protecting him, which is why they went out, got Matt Moore in or from West Virginia, their offensive line coach, as Colby alluded to a moment ago there, and brought in 3 of those offensive linemen, including Thomas Remek, to kind of anchor this unit. And that was a pretty solid offensive line that West Virginia had a season ago. So we'll see if that makes a difference. But yeah, you want to have your best offensive lineman dealing with Dylan Stewart today. In addition to that help you're getting, from the tight ends and running backs and stuff like that to try and hold him at bay. And it's kind of one of those things saying, hey, we're going to take everything away from you with this guy. You're going to have to beat us on the other side with Brian Thomas Jr., JT Gee, or whoever it may be.
And then the flip side, defensively, the name to think about, Ben Bell, a guy who was really good rushing the passer 2 years ago. Not as good last year, but a guy who has history of getting after quarterbacks. He's going to mostly face.
He wasn't as good last year because he self-shirted himself.
I know.
After 4 games. He could have had another monster season, but he knew I'm going to be sought after in the portal. Right. I'm going to go ahead and sit myself out.
I'm going to go make some money.
Yeah.
So Bell he's going to go up against Josiah Thompson. And that's going to be a big matchup to keep an eye on.
How much progress has he made this offseason is going to be answered today.
Absolutely. Will Caleb Spencer play? I mean, not Caleb Spencer. I'm sorry, Caleb Woodson. They got Caleb's all over this team. Will Caleb Woodson play? Had the DUI. That's going to be a game time decision. We'll see how Virginia Tech handles that. Special teams. The kid, John Love, the kicker, is a weapon.
Yep.
He only missed 2 kicks last year. 1 over 50, even though he made, I think, 3 out of 4 from over 50.
He did.
He missed 1 between 30 and 39. You don't want to get into a kicking contest with Virginia Tech.
Because you have a guy with experience compared to whoever's going to be kicking for South Carolina today, because we don't have a depth chart, who doesn't. And they do have a brand new punter they're ranking it as well, so we don't really know how that's going to go. But, I would give them the advantage in special teams just on the kicking game alone.
All right, Gamecocks Game Day Live here from O'Hara's Main Street, Lexington. Viewing parties at 3 o'clock. You can register to win Carolina Clemson tickets. We'll come back, look at your South Carolina Gamecocks next on Gamecocks Game Day on 107.5 The Game. All right, Gamecocks Game Day live from O'Hara's downtown Lexington on Main Street. Again, viewing party 3 o'clock. Come on out. Register to win Carolina Clemson tickets at 3. All right, we have not talked about Rasul Faison yet.
No.
Because it feels like we've talked about him enough. But getting Faison, and I don't know how much he's going to play today. I don't know. He could start and just get the normal reps of starting running back. He could be in the mix. Oscar Attaway could start. Go to the depth chart real quick.
Yeah. The lack of a depth chart. He's listed as a running back, as they all are, and they're listed based on seniority. So he is at the top. Of course, we know from Beamer and everybody talking, he's been practicing like he was going to play. Now, again, we had no indication of when that ruling was going to come down from the NCAA, but this isn't a situation where, he's been away from the team or wasn't able to practice. So I have confidence we're going to see a decent amount of him today. Does he start? We'll see. Does he get, maybe 5 to 8 carries, or maybe he has 10 to 15? We don't really know. I do think there's going to be a good mix of guys taking handoffs today, and Rasul Faison is going to be one of them. How much, we don't know yet.
I just hope as this season progresses, whether it's Faison, Attaway, whoever it is, someone needs to be one. It could be 1A, that's fine, but a running back by committee thing where you just kind of pick names out of hats and go with the hot hand and all that other stuff. Look, if you got to, you got to. And teams have been successful doing it in the past, but I think running backs need rhythm. Running backs need to tote the rock to get themselves kind of lathered up.
And you saw how beneficial it was in your offense last year when you had Rocket Sanders, who was your bell cow back. And yeah, you were able to mix in guys like Attaway and Juju McDowell at times, and others, when Rocket needed a breath or when he was dinged up a little bit. But Rocket Sanders was your primary running back, and you knew that going into every single game. And you'd like to be able to say that same thing about Rasul Faison this season. Again, we'll just see how much he factors in today.
All right, and obviously Lenore Sellers, we know the expectation. We get it. Lenore Sellers sees it. He is a guy that's looked at as, a guy that could be in New York at the Heisman ceremony as a finalist. He could be a top 5, top 10 pick in the NFL draft. All these things are being, kind of focused on Sellers. There's 2 things, though, to me. And we talk about the offensive line all the time. You're going to have 3 new starters on the O-line. Maybe 4, who knows, but definitely 3. Is 2 things. A, the Mike Shula effect here. Because Mike Shula talks about trying to make Sellers more well-rounded. Yes, he can do magical things with his legs, but to get him to be more consistent from the pocket, going through progressions, throwing guys open, things of that nature. That's going to be interesting to watch today.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, we saw a little bit of that in the ball game. That did also have to do with the way that, Illinois had prepared for him. But ideally, you'd like to see Sellers become a more well-rounded passer. And again, if you're going to do that, you're going to need an offensive line that can protect you so you can sit back in the pocket, because a lot of those great plays that Sellers made last year is when the protection broke down, he just had to make something happen with his feet because he didn't have to have enough time. But even in those situations, keeping your eyes downfield, making sure the play keeps going, and we can find a guy open, throw it to him, which we did see in some situations a year ago. And again, I have a lot of confidence because, when you've already been working with this guy like you did a year ago, now having another offseason, and we assume that the system and the offense itself is going to stay pretty much the same, I think he's going to be able to take some step forwards today in this season.
Okay, so Boaz Stanley looks like he'll be the starting center coming in through the portal. Tackles feel like they'll be the same, Josiah Thompson and Kason Henry, even though Henry was in a battle from what we understand with Tree Barbalade. Okay, at guard, this is where it gets interesting. There's a lot of smoke that said Sherratt, the true freshman, will start at one guard spot, and it feels like it could be Tro Ball at the other guard spot. Now, Nick Sharp was really good at Wake Forest last year, but he's been hurt and nicked up.
Yep.
And then you got the kid Rodney Newsom also coming in from Western Kentucky, who played all over the interior. It feels like Sherratt will be the starter at guard. We'll see.
I would put my money on that based on our context clues of last week that did not include a depth chart. And again, he's somebody that was highly touted out of high school, has generated a lot of buzz this offseason. You obviously worry about a true freshman starting anywhere on the offensive line. But we've already had that situation last year with Thompson, with Tree and Tro 2 years ago based on the injuries. So we'll see what happens there. And again, Trovon Ball, and if Tree ends up starting at one of the tackle spots or right tackle there, then at least those guys do have some experience from a couple of years ago that they can fall back on. But yeah, that's perhaps the biggest question mark we've had that we were hoping to answer last week. Didn't get it with the depth chart. And we'll find out as being reset about 28 minutes before kickoff today on who exactly those guys are.
See who goes out there.
Follow the Jack Veltries and the David Clonagers for their tweets about 30 minutes before the game.
And look, one of the big matchups, like we said, Ben Bell coming off the edge against Josiah Thompson. That's something to watch. And look, Caleb Woodson, the linebacker who got the DUI at Virginia Tech, feels like he's going to play. That's where the interior of the offensive line, dealing with a guy who is maybe their best all-around player on defense with Woodson. I, though, think about this. Last year, something we didn't talk about enough was the lack of consistent production from the wide receiver position last season. You got a ton of talent in that room this year. Someone or someones have to step up and get consistent, whether it's Mazio Bennett, Nick Harbor, Brown, the freshman. We got to get consistent. Here's my thing with the wide receivers. A, you got to win one-on-ones. B, you got to get open. And then C, when you get open and they throw it to you, what do you got to do, Tyler?
Got to catch it.
That wide receiver room's got to get better this year for this offense to really explode.
And I have a lot of belief they will. And I go back to something we talked about with Greg McElroy of the SEC Network a few weeks back, where you look at his numbers from year 1 to year 2 as a starter, where his wide receiver core stayed mainly the same. Now, yes, he had guys like Julio Jones in that wide receiver core that certainly helps out a lot, but he talked about that continuity and having an entire offseason work with the same guys over again, helped them out and helped him out tremendously. So I'm hoping for the same thing here. And then, again, you have 5 true freshman wide receiver coming in here, where you're hearing names about Brian Moreau and Malik Clark and Lex Cyrus, and one, if not multiple of those guys are going to end up having some kind of effect this year, and maybe as soon as today. And, we'll see how that works out, because, again, you don't go into this season with an established guy at the wide receiver spot. So really all those spots are up for taking. If there's a freshman that comes in and is better than Mazio Bennett, well, guess what? That freshman's going to find his way onto the field. And again, we don't know for sure, but we'll have to see today.
All right, flip side on defense, we talked about in the opening segment, a lot of new people, a lot of new faces. We talked about, Goodwine and Gabriel Dindy and Barrett, in the middle. They'll be rotating through those guys. We'll see who else becomes part of that rotation as well. The edge across from Dylan Stewart, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get the first shot, 4.5 sacks last year in limited duty. We don't have to be a football genius to figure out that a lot of people are going to be blocking Dylan Stewart when he's going to rush the passer. So other guys on this defensive line should be able to eat a lot.
Yeah, Virginia Tech and every other team is going to take their chances on whoever that other guy is.
So anyway, go ahead.
I was saying Virginia Tech and every other team is going to take their chance on whoever that other guy is, Brian Thomas Jr., JT Gear, Desu, or whatever, and not letting Dylan Stewart beat them individually.
All right, and so when you look at that, and I'll tell you another guy, Jerron Willis.
Yeah,
don't forget about
Willis. Not talking about
2 years ago, put a lot of heat on quarterbacks. Didn't play much last year. He might get a chance to, in some specialized packages, in obvious pass rushing situations. Willis might be in there on the other side.
And that was something that Clayton White brought up the other day when naming guys. Again, somebody that we haven't talked about a lot, because there's other guys that seem to kind of be ahead of him on the depth chart right now, but certainly can't rule him out.
No, and then linebacker, obviously, it's all brand new. You've got J.O. they're calling, because nobody can say his name, not even him.
Okoronkwo.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. And then you've got Murphy, you've got Johnson, a lot of speed and athleticism, and guys who are all 4 stars. Now they all have to step up. And look, you got large shoes to fill from last year.
You do. And again, we've been hearing about J.R. Johnson since he stepped on campus. And again, the only thing you could hold against him last year is he wasn't better than the 3 guys that were playing. And pretty much all those guys had at least some opportunity in the NFL this offseason. So we're going to learn a lot about him today. Debo Williams was in our own studios singing his praises just a couple of days ago. So again, we're going to find out today, but he does seem to kind of be the leader of that group as of right now.
Secondary's deep. You know a lot. You know about Judge Collier. You know about DQ Smith. You know about Jalen Kilgore. Brandon Cisse, everybody says, has fit perfect. He'll be starting on one corner, we're pretty sure. Peyton Williams, it feels like he's going to get a chance to take over for Emmett Worry at safety.
Yeah, and the question becomes, okay, is DQ Smith going to be that guy that kind of sends into Nicky Worry's role? Again, he has the experience, obviously played alongside Nick for a couple seasons now. And again, does he have to go out there and play like a first-round draft pick? Not necessarily, but it has to be just good enough, right? And again, this defensive back unit has been one that's been consistently good in the Beamer era. They continue to send guys to the NFL, and we certainly hope that's the case this season. And they do have the most experience returning or coming in from the transfer portal with a guy like Cisse.
And of course, the special teams is a ginormous question mark.
We don't even know who's kicking.
We don't know who's kicking, who's punting, who's holding, who's long snapping. We don't know who the return people are going to be. We don't know who the gunners are going to be. This is where Virginia Tech has a big edge.
They do. And we're going to
special teams.
We're going to find out in real time. Again, what Beamer said the other day about kickers didn't give you the most confidence, but he said the same thing last year. And Alex Herrera was okay. We're hoping for better than that.
All right, we'll come back at Preston Thorne's thoughts. Former Gamecock will tell us what he thinks about this matchup with South Carolina, Virginia Tech. That is next. Gamecocks Game Day. We are live from O'Hara's in downtown Lexington. Tyler Head, Rachel's here. Dave is back in the studio. I'm Terry Ford. Hearing from Preston Thorne next on the game. All right, we are live here at O'Hara's in Lexington. We run till noon, 3 o'clock, our viewing party. Your chance to register for South Carolina Clemson tickets as we will be here hanging out watching the game. Feel free to join us, and who knows, you might win some Carolina Clemson tickets when we pick that drawing rivalry week. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, Rachel's here. Dave is back in the studio. All right, LSU saved the SEC yesterday. We'll start there. Last year, Tyler, LSU loses this game. Because defensively, they can't get the stops.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, that's one thing that came from yesterday. And I know we always focus on quarterback play and all that stuff. And did Garrett Nussmeier come up when he needed to in some big moments and make some good throws? Yes. But LSU's defense was the story. Every time the Tigers had something go wrong or something happen, and Clemson got the ball, whether it was a missed field goal, you got stopped on downs, momentum was switching for whatever reason. The LSU defense came on the field and said, we're going to put a stop to this nonsense. 22 pressures.
Mm-hmm.
They held Clemson to under 60 yards rushing, and almost all the yards rushing for Clemson was after contact. That's LSU won this game on the line of scrimmage, especially defensively.
And that's what's been the difficult part for Brian Kelly the past couple of years. You've had good offense, but the defense hasn't been there to match it up. But if last night was any indication, they seem to be back on the right track. And yeah, they kept Cade Klubnik under constant pressure last night. And again, for one of the better quarterbacks we've talked about going into the season, he had a pretty rough night. He struggled
with the pressure last night that LSU put on him. Didn't have Antonio Williams. Their best wide receiver, got hurt during the game for Clemson, to be fair. But Clemson lost the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, offensively, they couldn't get any push to run the football. Klubnik was the leading rusher. And that was really a lot of it was just scrambles. But the other side of the ball is what surprised me. LSU, with 4 new starting offensive linemen, held their own against a Clemson defensive front with future NFL dudes, Woods and Parker. That's what LSU ran the ball, not great, but efficiently.
And that was the thing with how good their offensive line was a year ago. They couldn't run the ball consistently at all. And to do that with a brand new offensive line was surprising, and maybe an indictment on Clemson, again, a team that we hyped up a lot this offseason, given all their returning production and experience, especially on that side of the football.
I'm going to tell you, what I love, too, is the last series Clemson got the rock. A lot of times defenses, you overthink. We're going to go in a prevent. We're going to drop back. We're going to make them dink and dunk and beat us. Baker, the DC for LSU, said, you know what? We've been coming after these cats all night. They blitzed on 62% of the dropbacks, and Baker kept blitzing. They kept blitzing. And when on that fourth down, the key to that fourth down stop was Harold Perkins blitzing and forcing Klubnik into a bad throw because Klubnik was running for his life. I give Baker so much credit for saying, you know what? We're going to keep our foot on the gas, and if we lose, we lose. We're going to play the way we played this whole game because we've been shutting these guys down.
Also, credit him for utilizing their best defensive player properly.
Yeah, I mean, because remember, that's been a big thing the last couple of years with Harold Perkins.
They've moved around here, there, and everywhere, and they finally put him back on the outside, and you see what happens.
Yeah, so LSU gets a gigantic win at Clemson to save the SEC's butt, because the other thing from yesterday is look, I'm eating it right now. I picked Alabama to boat race Florida State. I didn't care if that game was played in the Bowden's backyard.
We all did.
And props to Mike Norvell, props to Florida State, the players, the coaching staff. Alabama was beaten up physically by Florida State yesterday.
They look soft.
Yeah.
In the Saban era, they would lose games, but they never got bullied like they got bullied for 4 quarters yesterday. And look, we were all laughing at Tommy Castellanos in the offseason for the trash he was talking. He went out there and backed it up. Mm-hmm. They legitimately ran all over that Alabama defense. And I was watching some highlight clips from a little bit earlier on. I mean, there are linebackers stumbling over their own feet. They played undisciplined football, got stupid penalties, and they couldn't do anything. Ty Simpson didn't live up to the billing going into that game. Like, it just looked like a fundamentally unsound football team that is destined to go like 7-5.
It looked like Alabama was a team coming off a 2-win season, and Florida State was a team with all the expectations.
Florida State did to Alabama what Alabama used to do to literally everybody for the better part of 15 years.
The other thing that gets me is, look, it's like they never saw a Gus Malzahn offense ever.
Yeah.
Gus Malzahn has been coordinating offenses for, 15, 20 years.
And coordinating against Alabama for the better part of 15 years.
Everyone knows what Gus does. I mean, he tweaks stuff, but geez.
It's like when they saw the motion of the wide receivers, they went cross-eyed every single time. Because, again, all he does, it's the horizontal stuff, moving guys around for the snap.
A lot of eye candy.
They just couldn't. Kane Womack, I guess, didn't plan for that. At least it didn't look that way.
I'm stunned by how undisciplined Alabama played. And you hit it on the head when you said that. I mean, look, you got to stay home against Malzahn's offense. You can't go heroing around the field. And when you got the opportunity to make a tackle, you got to make it. And how about the bonehead of all bonehead? Florida State, that 3rd and 8 or whatever, Alabama scored to make it a 1-possession game.
Yep.
And you get the 15-yarder.
Yep.
Just ridiculously. Alabama was undisciplined. They were out physical. They were beaten up. They were out coached, outplayed. I was stunned by what happened yesterday in Tallahassee. Hey, hats off to Florida State.
Yeah, no,
great job by those guys.
That is a 4th loss against an unranked team in just over a year.
And by the way, do you know Saban only had 2?
Yeah, I know.
In how many years?
15.
Yeah,
close to that.
Yeah, okay. You got work to do there, Kalen. By the way, I'm sure the folks in the state of Alabama aren't freaking out at all.
Paul's going to be fun on Monday.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, Ohio State at home. 14-7 over Texas. I know everybody wants to talk about Arch Manning. I get it. Did he play well? No. But here's the thing. If you're Texas, you walk out of this thing going, we outgained Ohio State by 100 yards. Ohio State was like 2 for 15 on 3rd down. The Buckeyes only scored 2 touchdowns. Your defense did its job at the Horseshoe. Your offense has got to get a lot better with everybody on the offense. And we're going to beat up on Arch, but the receivers didn't seem to get open. The offensive line had trouble in pass protection at times. But if you're Texas, you don't feel terrible leaving even though you lost.
You don't. And again, we are naturally going to be inclined to overreact to everything we see after one game. And as I saw here with South Carolina, what happens in game 1 isn't always indicative of what happens the rest of the season. I think Arch is going to be fine. That was obviously a tough situation to go into for your first road start. And we saw in that touchdown drive, we saw the potential of what he can be on that drive. And some of the throws that he did make, also made some bad mistakes like the interception that he threw. But yeah, you don't feel like the world is crashing down around you if you're Texas walking away from that. You got some things to work on, and you're going to have plenty more tough games this year. You're going to take on Georgia, teams like that as the season goes along. But yeah, I think they'll be okay. That was, for Arch Manning's sake, hopefully a good learning experience for him.
Can I say something really weird about it? This might be the best thing to happen to Arch Manning.
Maybe so.
And here's why. First of all, you didn't play well. You're off. You had 37% off target in that game. Was awful. Didn't complete a pass over 5 yards till the 4th quarter, I believe. Played better in the 4th quarter to his credit. But Texas got stopped. They were 1 of 5 on 4th down. That was the game.
Including on the
they
goal
lost
line.
the moments.
Yep.
They lost the moments. But if you're Arch, now the hype train will leave Austin, Texas, because now you're a bum, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now everybody hates you. Or everybody did hate you. Now everybody doesn't believe in you.
They don't care about you anymore now because they think you're not any good.
Sure.
I had 5 people text me yesterday, boy, he's terrible.
Yeah, I guess pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes. And I'm going to say this. I want to give Matt Patricia a lot of credit. I'm not a Matt Patricia fan at all. But what he did yesterday defensively, Arch Manning held the ball a ton, and usually 2 things are going on. A, the receivers aren't getting open, or 2, you're confusing the young quarterback. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I think Matt Patricia put a great plan together. Ohio State's got players on defense, and they totally bamboozled the Texas offense. So I don't want to forget to give a guy never get credit. I want to give Matt Patricia credit. And Ohio State, they slogged through and found a way to win to their credit.
They did. And I mean, Julian Sayin didn't have that much of a better day than Arch Manning did, say for, not throwing the interception. Jeremiah Smith didn't really go out there and turn it on.
2 drops.
Carnell Tate obviously had the touchdown catch, but like the superstars of the offensive side for Ohio State didn't exactly play lights out either. So again, you give credit to Texas defense for keeping them in that game. And again, I thought for a second we're going to have some kind of Arch Manning miracle comeback at the end of the game that would have ignited the belief in him all over again.
If he hits that throw on 3rd and 5, because he throws the ball behind the receiver, because he had terrible mechanics, he sidearmed, he was falling back. If he steps into that throw and hits a receiver on 3rd and 5 and they get the first down, you might have got the match.
You would have had an opportunity.
But he made a bad throw there.
He did.
All right, there's your SEC and Top 25 scoreboard. We'll get back in here. Our keys to the game, and Jack Velcher from Gamecock Central will join us as we throw out our keys to a Gamecock victory next. It's Gamecocks Game Day. We are live from O'Hara's in downtown Lexington on Main Street. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, Rachel's here. David Dare back in the studio punching the buttons. It's Gamecocks Game Day till top of the hour. Then the network takes over on 107.5 The Game. We are here hanging at O'Hara's Main Street in Lexington. Getting ready, our viewing party is at 3 o'clock. Here at O'Hara's, you get a chance to register to possibly win Carolina Clemson tickets for Rivalry Week. We hope it's going to be a fantastic game with two highly ranked teams. So we'll tell you more about that. But right now, our keys to the game, Jack Veltri, our buddy from Gamecock Central in Atlanta. Am I correct, sir?
This is correct. I just got here probably like 20 minutes ago, and we are inside what looks like a spaceship from the outside. We are inside the stadium.
And my question to you is, first of all, have they set the food out yet?
No, not yet, but I did see that there is a ice cream machine here, so I might have to go ahead and use that eventually.
Who's the guy with his mouth under the ice cream machine?
Yeah, who's that guy?
See if you can bring that back for the Willie B press box next week.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Sure. I'm going to have to haul it out of here. Just unplug it and bring it back.
Hey, Jack, pretend you're staff. Just pretend you belong.
Well,
you know what you're doing.
Jack came with a crew of like 4 people, so that should be enough.
Oh yeah, we can lift it out of here. So hopefully it's got wheels.
Oh man! All right, so guys, let's get keys to the game. I've got about 37. No, I got 3, but I'll get to mine here in a bit. We'll start off with you, Jack Veltri. What's your top key to this for a Gamecock victory over Virginia Tech?
I think protecting the football is going to be massive in this game, right? You want to. Time of possession is a interesting stat because it doesn't always matter in the end, but that matters in terms of protecting the football, not turning it over. We saw South Carolina struggle so many times last year, fumbling the football, giving it away. You take care of the ball in this game. You don't have any turnovers, and maybe your defense forces 1 or 2. You win the turnover battle, you win this game, I think.
What do you got, Tyler Head, on your key?
I think just limiting overall mistakes. And look, it's week number 1, as we've seen through the week 0 games and the games yesterday. Everybody's going to have missed assignments, blown coverages, those kind of things. And that's going to happen today for South Carolina. But keeping those to an absolute minimum to not allow Virginia Tech to be in this game, that also goes in line with turnovers like Jack was talking about. Because if you keep setting up Virginia Tech with short fields, well, guess what? They're going to have opportunities to score. They've got a kicker that can make from long range, and that can make this game really interesting. So taking care of the football, limiting mistakes, and just making sure you don't shoot yourself in the foot.
I'll throw one out, and I'll throw a bunch of them out here in our little segment. One is, you know what, something they haven't done in the last so many years, my time here, whether it was Georgia State or whether it was North Carolina or Old Dominion, start fast. Get up by a couple of scores, establish yourself on both sides of the ball. Squash Virginia Tech's hope early, right, guys? Yep. Don't let them hang around. The one team I think can beat South Carolina, fellas, is South Carolina today. I think they're better on paper, and if they play to their ability, this game shouldn't be coming down to a kick, so to speak. Jack, I'll throw another one at you that I think is special teams are such an unknown.
Yeah, no, they definitely are an unknown going into this game just because we don't know. Well, South Carolina knows who the kicker, punter, all those guys are. What we hear out there, but again, it's nothing official until we get. I think Shane said about 28 minutes before the game, during the warm-ups, they'll go through first team offense, first team defense, the kicker, punter, the whole 9 yards. So we'll learn it then. But I have a feeling special teams is going to matter at some point this season, and it may be pivotal today for Carolina to be on a day game with those specialists coming through.
Well, and I think that has a direct effect on your 4th down strategy as well. And South Carolina was aggressive on 4th downs quite a bit last year. And again, you had a kicker that was okay, but did miss some pretty key kicks as the season went along. So you want to be in a situation where you feel comfortable trotting your kicker out there every time you have a 4th down within the 32 or 33-yard line. But we don't know, and hopefully we get some easy kicks to start the game that allow whoever it is to get out there and get comfortable. But if you start missing kicks, then you're going to have to get more aggressive on 4th downs today.
Yeah, and the other part of it, go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say that. Sorry to cut you off, Terry. That first kick in this game is going to be massive. I don't know if South Carolina. I wonder what range South Carolina would feel comfortable kicking from in this game. I would have to imagine 40 yards is probably about the max that they'd be feeling good about. But if you get like a chip shot, let's say it's William Joyce or Mason Love out there, like a 20, 25-yard field goal to start the game, they hit that. That does wonders for the confidence. So hopefully South Carolina can score a touchdown instead of having to kick a field goal today. But you definitely want to make sure these kickers have a little bit of confidence going into whenever they kick today.
I want to throw you guys another one. Tyler, I'll hit you first with this one. Look, Virginia Tech's offensive line is in flux.
Yes.
You're moving guys around. You don't have a lot of depth. South Carolina, I know they're retooling the defensive front. You do have Dylan Stewart. You have guys that have coming back. You got guys from the portal. I think one of the biggest keys to this game is, can the South Carolina defensive front make Virginia Tech pay on their offensive line?
I absolutely think so. And again, if I'm Clayton White, I'm dialing up as much pressure as possible to test the limits of that brand new offensive line to see what we have. And again, Dylan Stewart's going to be occupied by tight ends, running backs, and obviously the offensive line on that side, which should hopefully allow Brian Thomas Jr. or whoever's coming off the other side to hopefully run free like Kyle Kennard did a season ago.
Hey, Jack, I want to throw one at you, a flip side. You know, the running game for South Carolina, we know Lenore Sellers can take off and go. Rasul Faison's going to play. You know, Virginia Tech, they do have some dudes on defense, and I think Woodson's going to play the linebacker. A nice little push in the run game would help this thing offensively, wouldn't it?
Totally. I mean, you want to definitely, you don't want to just rely on Sellers and his legs in this game. And I think it's the same thing for Virginia Tech with Kyron Jones. I mean, you want to rely on those running backs. So we'll see if Terrence Stewart is going to play today. We'll see if he's healthy out there. But it could be Marcellus Hawkins, obviously, leading the way for the Hokies. But for South Carolina, Shane Beamer did say during Carolina calls the other day that Rasul Faison will be a major part of the game today. So I'm interested to see what his workload looks like. Again, he's been practicing with the team just like he's going to be playing all summer, all fall. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they use the running backs, how much each guy goes out there with Attaway and Auguste, and then how effective they are out there.
Last one for you guys in our keys to the game here, Gamecocks Game Day. Jack Belcher, Gamecock Central. Tyler's here as we go till top of the hour with Gamecocks Game Day, sponsored by LexMed, by the way, our buddies at Lexington Medical. All right. Receivers have to step up this year. Can't be the tight end in the back like last year. The receiving core to me is vital to step up. Tyler, if I had to say pick one wide receiver that you're the most confident is going to step up and make some plays today, who's it going to be?
I'm going to have to go with the, low-hanging fruit of Nick Harbor, because I liked what I saw out of him at the end of last season. He really started to kind of find his own. Again, we know he's focused on football only this offseason. Mike Furry's done a wonderful job with all these wide receivers, and I have high hopes that we're going to see that next step from him this entire season, which starts today, and hopefully he can hit one of those explosive plays and help South Carolina pick up a victory today. Jack
Veltri, pick a wide receiver. Who you feeling good about, bub?
I'm feeling pretty good about Nick Harbor, but I'm going to go different. I'm going to go, honestly, I feel like Jared Brown has not been talked about a lot this preseason. We talk about the freshman wide receivers. We talk about Mazio Bennett. We talk about Harbor. We've even talked about Vandravius Jacobs a little bit. But I think Jared Brown, an older guy who we thought would be a little bit more productive last year, got a little banged up, didn't have the type of season you probably want from him as a transfer. You're really hoping today might be the start of getting that connection going with Sellers and really having a big game.
All right, I'll throw Mazio Bennett out there. I thought Bennett last year had some really nice moments. Hopefully a year of getting bigger and stronger and faster and all that and working on his technical skills. Hopefully Mazio Bennett will pop. One of these receivers or multiple have to step up. Game prediction, Jack Veltri, what do you got?
I've got South Carolina winning this game. I think 34-21 is what I said in staff picks, and I am sticking with it for this game. I think Carolina and Virginia Tech are kind of neck and neck a little early on. It might be a little close at halftime, but I think Carolina's going to have a big second half and roll away with the victory.
Tyler, ahead.
Great minds think alike. You got the exact same score, 34-21. Again, Virginia Tech's going to score a few times, I think, off some South Carolina mistakes, but I think at the end of the day, South Carolina is a top-to-bottom better team than VT is. You obviously have a special quarterback, special guy coming off the edge, and I think that's going to be the difference for the Gamecocks.
That staff pick thing, who won that last year? I forgot.
Oh, the guy that never gets his picks in.
Yeah. I'll always have to beg him to get his picks in. I should do less of that this year.
But by the way, I'll finish last this year, right?
Definitely.
That's the way it's going to go. I'm going to finish.
I told him he should stop counting your picks when you're not getting them in.
Hey, I'm going 23-13. Hey, I'm going 23-13 South Carolina, guys. I think Virginia Tech can hang around the first quarter and a half, because there's so many new things with Virginia Tech and so many unknowns. South Carolina's better. If they play a clean game, they should find a way to grind to a W and get a win. Jack Veltri, my friend, enjoy the game. Bring back the ice cream machine.
I will do my best, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Appreciate you, bud. We'll come back. We'll get a report. Elijah Campbell covering the game for us in Atlanta. We will talk to Elijah next on Gamecocks Game Day Live from O'Hara's in Lexington. And Gamecocks Game Day always sponsored by our friends at LexMed. Final segment with Elijah, then the network takes over at noon on the game. All right, we're and our buddy Elijah Campbell from Atlanta. Elijah Campbell, you in Atlanta, sir?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm in the building right now. I'm staring at the field, talking to you fellas right now. It is an empty stadium. It's a quiet before the storm, but fellas here in just 3 short hours, it'll be full, and we'll be kicking off football. This is great. I love this building.
All right, and our buddy Elijah Campbell sponsored. The reason he's in Atlanta, by the way, Tyler, is thanks to our pals at Tilly's Warehouse in 5 Points. Was it the first liquor
first
store?
package store in 5
store
Points in 20 years.
In
They
20 years.
Went down there the other day, got a great selection, and definitely check them out.
And who better?
TillysWarehouse.com.
Who better to sponsor Elijah Campbell?
I can't think of a better better brand.
Place with liquor. Anyway, all right, my man. So a lot of storylines here. When I say to you, okay, the number one storyline running through your brain for South Carolina, Virginia Tech is blank.
The first storyline running through my head for this game is that can South Carolina build upon what they did last year in terms of just looking at it from the macro? Can you build upon a 9-win season in which you were a game away, essentially, in the regular season from playing in the college football playoffs, something your program has never done? Can you build upon that success? How close you were last year, right? So we saw like a big building block in 2022 with this team winning 8 games and pulling off wins against Tennessee and Clemson to keep them out of a 4-team playoff. That was massive. And you fell on your face the next year. It was a Murphy's Law type season. Can you string together two seasons of two really 9-10 win seasons and be able to push your program into a place of consistency where the program is now built and can help run itself years into the future. And that really starts today. You win today, you have a very manageable slate in September, and you take care of business. If you can maybe get to 5-0 going into that LSU game, now we're talking about having something really special. But you don't get to 5-0 if you can't take care of business today.
And Elijah, it's been so fun this offseason talking about Sellers, the hype surrounding him, Heisman Trophy, first-round draft pick, all this kind of stuff. But we'll answer at least one of the questions we have about him today and how much progress he's made in the offseason working with Mike Shula, working with all those wide receivers once again, as we hope he can be a more well-rounded passer like Shula's talked about making him this offseason. We know his legs are there if they need them, but today I think I'm interested more than anything else to see the progress he's made since the last time we saw him in the Citrus Bowl in December.
Exactly. I'm so fascinated to see how this passing game looks and how different it is. Like last year, the passing game kind of centered around using Josh Simon as the safety blanket, the easy button, right? A play breaks down. Josh Simon's going to be open 6 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Dump it down to him, let him make stuff happen. You're now hoping that the receivers around him get a little bit better. I think Mazio Bennett was the best route runner on the team last year. He's back for a second season. Nick Harbor has his first full off season for South Carolina. You've got 7 freshman wide receivers who the coaching staff has raved about all off season. How do they get involved? How early are they involved? I think the passing game is going to look different from a schematic standpoint, but I'm like you too. Like I'm curious to see how the accuracy improves with Lenoris, and also how different does the passing game look from a schematic X's and O's standpoint from last year as well. I think those two things combined make today, if you're just watching the offense, looking for something to watch for, it gives it a really intriguing storyline in terms of just what this team is going to look like.
Elijah Campbell hanging out with us live from Atlanta, covering the South Carolina-Virginia Tech game on social media, on the YouTube channel, all sorts of cool stuff, sponsored by Tilly's Warehouse. All right, Elijah, I want to throw this at you. We only touched on it a little bit on the show. Look, play callers are all different. They've all got a rhythm. They've all got a certain way they do things. The best play callers call by feel. They call by instinct. How do you feel about Mike Shula as a play caller going into this game?
I certainly feel like if you're going to replace Dow Loggins, who had maybe his best year as a play caller last year, if you're going to replace him, do it with a guy who's been calling plays for almost 40 years, right? Like Mike Shula grew up in a household of the greatest head football coach maybe in the history of the sport. And he's been calling plays ever since he got into the business, right? It's been a while since he's been in the college game, but if you want to feel good about what Mike Shula does with scrambling quarterbacks, just go back and watch that 2015 Carolina Panthers season where he had his most successful season as a play caller with a fellow named Cam Newton, who was a very similar archetype, not the same player. I'm not making a direct like comparison, but the same archetype of player as Lenoris Sellers. He's really good at getting those guys involved and balancing, running, passing, and teaching his quarterbacks that decision-making process on when to bail, when to run, when to throw it away, when to check down. I think that's a very intriguing part of this game too, or the whole season. But I think if you're a Gamecock fan, Mike Shula getting the offensive coordinator gig and just being in the building last year is maybe the best case scenario. I certainly prefer that than going outside the program and making any type of hire this offseason.
Real quick, we obviously know what we have in Dylan Stewart. We've talked about a lot of guys on defense this offseason, Brownlow Dinley, J.R. Johnson, Sean Murphy. Who are you most intrigued to see on this retooled defense that lost so much talent from a year ago?
You mentioned one of them. If I'm ranking them, it's Sean Murphy, number one, just because how valuable guys like Devo Williams and Demetrius Knight were last year in terms of their ranginess, athleticism, and ability to be able to cover in the open field too when they had to. Sean Murphy's really good in coverage. Everything anybody I've talked to about Sean Murphy has mentioned his coverage abilities. If he's able to marry the coverage abilities and being an extra run stopper, then the defensive line is going to get help behind them. I think that's important. Defensive back, I will look for as my number 2 player. I will say Judge Collier. I think he's going to break out. Like Judge Collier has the perfect body and prototype to be a really good corner or a cover corner on the boundary. He had incredibly long arms. Got significantly better as the year went on last year. I expect him to start off the season really good. I think he'll make some plays today, and I think he'll be a player that we might not have talked about a lot coming into the season, but will when the season starts and goes on.
All right, last minute here real quick. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about special teams?
About a 5. But now if the game is a one-score game in the fourth quarter, it'll be an 8, right? It will be significantly higher. Your goal today, Terry, is for it to not matter with a special team. Because if this is a close game in the fourth quarter, that's the one advantage Virginia Tech has over South Carolina, is special teams. They were top 16 special teams unit according to Phil Steele last year. Their kicker hit a 60-yarder in the Duke's Mayo Bowl and was 22 and 24 on the season. Mm-hmm. He's money, right? If you get in a field goal competition, you're going to lose. You got to keep it to where they are not a field goal away from beating you or tying you.
All right, so you are there thanks to our friends at Tilly's Warehouse. Please talk about Tilly's Warehouse, sir.
Tilly's fills a really good void, kind of like when Mike Shula filled the void of Dow Loggins when he left for the App State head coaching job, because for 20 years, there was no liquor store down there in 5 Points. Well, Tilly's Warehouse filled that void, and for over 2 decades, they have been really a place that obviously values alcohol a lot, been a really good provider of it. So if you're looking for a game day need, a game day fix to make your party go to the next level, Tilly's Warehouse is for you.
All right, you're the man in Atlanta, Elijah Campbell, Gamecocks Game Day. We are done. The network is coming next here on the game.